Musashi was born in feudal Japan, a land governed by the blade. When he was 13, he had already defeated a man in single combat. By the time he was 30, he had survived countless duels against the most dangerous men of his time and walked away from every single one. But as he grew older, he retreated further from the world that had once celebrated him. Musashi wasn't broken by the world. He chose solitude with the same determination he used in his duels. We are shaped by what others expect of us. Our definitions of success are inherited, not chosen. We pursue things because we've been told they matter, or because someone we wanted to impress is watching us. Musashi was restless and hungry for victory, like any young warrior. But somewhere along the way, he changed. He realized that the greatest opponent he would ever face was not standing across from him with a sword. It was inside him, made of ego, a desire for approval, and an attachment to outcomes that were never within his control. But he wasn't giving up on his life. What he refused was dependence. In his Book of 5 Rings, he wrote that a warrior shouldn't have a favorite weapon, shouldn't get stuck on any one technique, and shouldn't become so attached to anything that losing it would make him lose his calm. He was writing about swordsmanship, but he was also writing about how to live. Most of us are attached to a certain version of ourselves, and when that version is threatened, we don't respond to the threat itself, but to the fear of losing who we think we are. And that reaction is almost always what leads us to make our worst decisions. By removing himself from social expectations, Musashi was able to see himself without the distortion created by other people's opinions. Musashi could ask himself what he actually believed and what he actually wanted. Questions that most of us never answer because we never give ourselves the space to ask them. Not only was he a warrior, but he was also an artist. Late in his life, the works he produced were considered masterpieces, and none of them were made for an audience. They were made for the discipline of creating them. Mastery is a continuous process. The moment you believe you have arrived, you have already begun to drift. Solitude was the path that made sustained practice possible, because in solitude, there is no approval to seek. As he neared the end of his life, Musashi retreated to a cave in the mountains. He was 60 years old, suffering from an unknown disease. He had no children and no estate to leave behind. In the final weeks of his life, he wrote his famous philosophical reflection, The Way of Walking Alone. It reads less like wisdom and more like the words of a man who has finally stopped pretending. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Do not pursue the taste of good food. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Musashi was describing the freedom that comes from wanting less, from recognizing that most of what we pursue not because it fulfills us, but because we believe it will. And the moment we stop chasing those desires, an enormous amount of energy becomes available. In the end, the way of walking alone is not about being alone. It's about developing clarity. You are responsible for the quality of your own attention, your own decisions, and your own character. Musashi walked away from every battle he ever fought. He walked away from titles, from comfort, and from the things most people in his time organized their lives around. He had developed such a deep relationship with himself that he no longer needed approval from others or material possessions to know who he was.